Assalamualaikum everyone. This is another video for O-level and IGCSE students for May-June 2024 exam series, and this is the list of important questions for 8 marks, right? So I'll discuss these questions in this video. These questions are expected to come in like tomorrow's exam. However, never expect that these questions will be tested as it is, but similar type of questions may be tested. So this video will really help you how to create good answers for 8 mark question. So in the previous videos I have already explained 6 mark questions, important 6 mark questions, and I have also discussed 4 mark questions as well and 2 mark questions as well. So if you are interested to watch those videos, then go to the channel and watch the latest most videos in the list. I think there will be 3-4 videos, latest videos that can help you out for tomorrow's exam. Okay, so now let's move on to these questions. First of all, keep in mind when question starts with the command word discuss, then you need to discuss points in favor of the statement as well as against the statement, right? And there is no need for conclusion, but it seems good if you give one-liner conclusion as well, although conclusion does not carry any marks, but still if you give a one-liner conclusion, that gives a good impression of your final answer. Okay, so discuss whether or not a government should encourage firms to merge. Okay, so one more thing, like how many points should you discuss in 8 mark question. So on average it is expected that you should write 3 well developed points in favor and 2 against the given statement, or you can reverse the situation as well, like 2 points in favor and 3 points against. So this is a general criteria that you should follow. However, the overall it is basically the question that is tested more on, like marked more on the basis of the level of development you go for answering your question, right? So generally there is no point marking here, but how you develop the points is more important. Let's move to the first question. The first question says discuss whether or not a government should encourage firms to merge. Right, so merger is basically the situation when 2 or more firms combine their business to form a big business, right? So this is basic definition of the merger. And firms, first of all, you will say that government should encourage firms to merge. Why it should encourage? You will have to give like points in favor of the merger, and then you will have to say that government should not encourage firms to merge. Then you will have to talk against points against the merger, right, or disadvantages of the merger. So when firms merge with, government should encourage firms to merge, because when they merge they become a big business, and when firms become large they can produce goods and services at large scale and can achieve economies of scale. Economies of scale is fall in long run average cost of production due to the rise in output. So firms will be able to reduce their average cost. Similarly, they will have more financial resources, and when they have more financial resources, banks generally also offer them loans at low rate of interest, so they can expand the business further as well. And large businesses also afford to hire technical staff, skilled staff, experienced staff that can improve the overall production of the business as well, and businesses can grow further. And merger is also beneficial because it reduces competition between firms, and resources that are generally wasted on advertisement now they will be saved. And on the other hand, you will say that government should not encourage firms to merge, because when firms merge they become a big firm. It may create monopoly position. Monopoly is basically the dominating position of a single firm in the industry. When it forms monopoly, then it is involved in overcharging, so price will increase, and underproduction, so quantity produced will decrease, so they cause market failure in the society as well. So these are the kind of disadvantages of merger, so you should explain those as well. Moving to question number 2, discuss whether or not a rise in country's foreign exchange rate would benefit its economy. So first of all, you should focus on the discuss command word discuss. So all of these questions start with the command word discuss, so the pattern of all of these questions will be exactly the same, like you will have to talk in favor of the statement and then against the statement. Discuss whether or not a rise in country's foreign exchange rate would benefit its economy. So foreign exchange is the price of a currency in terms of another currency, and when there is the rise in foreign exchange rate of currency, it means now price of exports will increase and price of imports will fall. I'm using PX for price of exports, and this is upward arrow that shows that price of exports are increasing, and PM price of imports are decreasing. So when exchange rate of currency increases, exports get expensive, imports get cheaper. So in the short run it will benefit the economy, because in the short run demand for exports is inelastic. Even though they are expensive, like exports will not decrease, rather people of other countries will keep buying from you, so your export revenue may increase. And on the other hand, import payments will fall, because imports have get like cheaper. Despite cheaper imports, in the short run when demand is inelastic, the volume of imports will not increase. So export earning will rise, import payment will fall in the short run, so it will lead to balance of payment, favorable balance of payment position. So balance of payment will move to surplus. When export earning is more than import payments, it increases export balance of payment position, favorable position. And secondly, the export industry will basically flourish, and it will lead to increase in employment in the country, and government will get more tax revenue as well. And on the other hand, you will have to talk against this point as well, right? So the rise in foreign exchange rate is not always beneficial, rather it will harm the economy in the long run, when demand for exports and imports is elastic. Elastic demand is when a little change in price leads to greater change in quantity demand. So a little rise in price of export will lead to a dramatic fall or larger fall in quantity demand for exports. So as a result, export revenue in the long run will decrease because of elastic demand. And import payments will increase, because when imports are cheaper, because of elastic demand, there will be a greater rise in demand for imports. So as a result, import payments will rise. Export earning will fall in the long run, in import payments will rise in the long run, and as a result balance of payment will move to deficit, and our export industry will suffer, and local young industry will also suffer in this case. Moving to question number 3, discuss why some countries may experience low rate of inflation in the future and some may not, right? So you have to talk why some countries may face lower inflation and why some countries may face higher inflation in the future. So now you can like talk about the inflation is basically the persistent rise in general price level over time, and it is generally caused by increase in aggregate demand or decrease in aggregate supply. So this is the background for this question, background knowledge for this question, and now you can answer and develop your answer to basically reply to this question. And you can say that some countries may experience lower inflation in the future because they are focusing on better technology, they are supporting their local firms, or they are inviting multinational companies by providing subsidy, improving infrastructure, and lowering tax revenue for them, tax rate for them. So there will be like fall in inflation rate in the country, in those countries. If you wish, you can make the diagram, but this diagram is not compulsory to make. However, you can just discuss it. So let me show you the diagram on this blackboard. So you can draw a diagram like this. So this is aggregate demand, This is aggregate supply. So I'm making straight lines. You can make a little curved as well, although it makes no difference. If you make straight lines, it's correct, and if you make a little curved line, that is also perfect. So on y-axis we have like price level, and on x-axis we have real GDP, and equilibrium takes place at point E, where equilibrium price is P and real GDP is Y. So now increase in aggregate supply because of better policies adopted by the government of those countries will increase aggregate supply. So aggregate supply curve will rise and shift to the right. Equilibrium will move to E1. Real GDP will rise to Y1 and price level will fall to P1. So when price level falls, it shows decrease in inflation. So some countries may experience fall in inflation or lower inflation in the future because they are using supply side policies to achieve economic growth or increase their real GDP of the country. On the other hand, you will say that some countries are expected to face higher inflation rate because they are adopting demand side policies. Maybe they are lowering direct taxes, that is income tax, and on X we have real GDP, and on Y we have price level. So demand side policies are basically the kind of policies that are adopted by the government to manipulate aggregate demand in the economy, and aggregate demand is the overall demand of the country. So as an evaluation point, or you have to write against the statement of question and saying that some countries may face higher inflation rate or increased inflation rate in the country. So initial equilibrium is at E, where price level is P and real GDP is Y. So these countries may be focusing on demand side policies, that is fiscal and monetary policies. So through fiscal policy, government increases government expenditure and decreases direct tax, that is income tax. When income tax is low and government expenditure are high, aggregate demand will shift to the right. And similarly, there may be lower interest rate in the country, so that is expansionary monetary policy, that also increases aggregate demand. So equilibrium will now move to E1, where real GDP will rise to Y1 and price level will increase to P1. So these countries are facing high price level, so inflation rate in these countries will increase. Now moving to question number 4, discuss whether or not an increase in unemployment benefit payments would reduce poverty. Right? So unemployment benefit payments are basically the unemployment allowances or job seeker allowances that government generally pays to the poor class or unemployed workers. So again, discuss question, so you have to talk in favor and against both. So increase in unemployment benefit payments would reduce poverty. On one hand, you will say that it will reduce poverty. How it will reduce poverty, you will have to explain that. And on the other hand, you will say that unemployment benefit payments may not decrease poverty, right? So poverty is when people don't have sufficient income to satisfy their basic needs of food, shelter and clothing. So when government provides unemployment benefits or job seeker allowances, then people will get some income. So as a result, they will be able to afford some basic necessities of life, including food, shelter and clothing, so they can reduce their poverty. However, like you will say that if these unemployment benefits are like a very small amount of money, then it may not cure the poverty. And similarly, increase in unemployment benefits will discourage people to work, and so as a result people will not do jobs, and when they don't do jobs, definitely they like stay poor. And poverty also is divided into like two types. One is absolute poverty and the other one is relative poverty. Absolute poverty can be eradicated somehow, but relative poverty cannot be reduced through unemployment benefit. Discuss whether or not an increase in government spending will reduce unemployment, right? So you will say that increase in government spending will reduce unemployment on one hand, and then you have to talk against that as well. Okay, increase in government spending will not reduce unemployment. So first of all, you will say that when government increases spending on like infrastructure maybe, or providing subsidy to the private sector so that they increase investments, and government may also be spending more on providing education and training to the workforce, so they will be in the position to get jobs, so unemployment may be reduced. On the other hand, you will say that increase in government spending may not reduce unemployment if government is spending more money on like new technology, machinery and tools that will reduce the requirement or need for the workers, so unemployment may further rise. Similarly, it also depends if government is spending more on like providing let's say other services, like maybe spending more on defense, then again unemployment may not decrease. So if economic activities are going on, then unemployment will decrease. However, spending on like non-economic activities will not reduce unemployment. Discuss whether, question number 6 is discuss whether or not a current account deficit on a balance of payment harms an economy. Right, you will say that like current account deficit will harm the economy. When it talks about economy, it means like the 5 economic agents or actors. Those include consumers, producers, workers, government and community. Right, so if balance of payment goes into deficit, current account goes into deficit, it means imports are more than the exports in value. Right, so when imports are more than the exports, it generally seems harmful to an economy, because if people are importing more from other countries, then local industry will suffer, and as a result local industry will be damaged and unemployment may rise in the country. And it also, like if imports are more, then it may also lead to balance of payment deficit of the country as well. And on the other hand, you will say that deficit is not always harmful, because if deficit is caused by like import of recent technology, machinery and tools from other countries that will contribute in the future for the development of the country or improvement in the industry, then definitely it will be beneficial to the economy. And so current account deficit is not always harmful, and it has some advantages as well. Question number 7 says discuss whether or not national minimum wage will reduce poverty. Minimum wage is the wage rate set by the government above the equilibrium, and when it is set above equilibrium, it means now workers will receive a little more than the earlier what they were getting. So when they get better reward, better wages, then this may reduce poverty, because now people will be able to afford basic necessities, possibly food, shelter and clothing, so poverty may be reduced. And national minimum wage may not reduce poverty, because it causes surplus supply of labor and demand for labor decreases, because when government sets minimum wage rate above the equilibrium point or above the existing wage level, then definitely there will be many employers who will not be like willing to hire workers, and it may increase unemployment in the country and surplus supply of labor will be created. So as a result, when people don't get jobs, even if the minimum wage rate is above the equilibrium, it will not reduce poverty in the country. And again, poverty is divided into absolute and relative poverty. Absolute poverty can be reduced to some extent, but relative poverty can never be reduced. So it's a kind of universal truth. And the last thing that you can say, that minimum wage, like already the equilibrium wage rate was very low, and by setting minimum wage there was a little increase in wages of the workers. So again, a little increase in wages may not substantially reduce the poverty. Question number 8 is discuss whether or not government should aim for higher rate of economic growth. Right, on one hand you will say that government should aim for high economic growth, and on the other hand you will have to talk against that as well. So let me like make the page a little clearer. Okay, so when government should aim to achieve high economic growth, because it increases GDP of the country, it increases employment opportunities in the country, and it leads to higher economic high tax revenue for the government as well. And sometimes it also reduces crime rate in the country, because when people have jobs and economic activity is going on, then definitely they need not to involve in crime, so crime rate will decrease, workers will be doing jobs instead of criminal activities. On the other hand, you will say that government should not aim to high economic growth rate, because there may be some other issues that should be focused more, such as like controlling inflation, or maybe controlling unemployment, or correcting balance of payment deficit. And similarly, economic growth that is caused by increase in aggregate demand or demand side policies is also harmful somehow if it leads to high inflation rate in the country. Demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation, although it is good inflation because it increases economic activity and aggregate demand in the country, but sometimes if it is really high, the rate is really high, then it is damaging for the economy. Question number 9 says, discuss whether or not tertiary sector workers are paid more than the primary sector workers. So on one hand you will say that tertiary sector workers are paid more. On the other hand, you may say that primary sector workers may be paid more than the tertiary sector workers. So tertiary sector is the service sector of the industry such as banking, transportation, communication, warehousing, advertisement, insurance, etc. And primary sector is relevant to the natural resources such as extractive industry, coal mining, and like agriculture industry. So on average we can see that tertiary sector workers are more skilled, more knowledgeable, and they receive generally high wages because they have more qualifications as well. For example, a bank manager would be earning much more than the farmer who is working in primary sector, and the bank manager is working in tertiary sector. On the other hand, you will say that the situation can be like, you have to look into the flip side of the question as well. Like you will say that primary workers, sector workers may be receiving much more than the tertiary sector workers, because primary sector worker may be a landlord having huge amount of natural resources and earning huge amount of funds. And it also depends, agricultural workers are sometimes very much prosperous and they earn high income, and the tertiary sector working in the tertiary sector might be working at very low level. Like for example, if we talk about banking, so bank manager, CEO of the bank, and like president of the bank, they are high paid people, but at the same time there are so many other low paid jobs in the industry as well. Like there may be a photocopier within the bank who is working in the tertiary sector, but his salary will be very low, right? The person who is managing the kitchen for bank officers will be paid very low wages as compared to the primary workers. Question number 10 says, discuss whether or not the use similarly primary sector workers may be the part of trade union as well, that is workers association that charges very high wages. Question number 10 is, discuss whether or not the use of supply side policy measures will reduce unemployment. Right, so supply side policies manipulate aggregate supply in the country. So on one hand you will say that supply side policies will reduce unemployment. On the other hand you will say that supply side policy might not reduce unemployment. So you have to give justification for both of them. So first of all, you will say that supply side policies like include subsidy to the private firms, education and training of workers, and trade union reforms, and capital expenditure on long-term projects. So when government provides subsidy to the private sector, more jobs are created, employment will increase, and at the same time if government provides education and training to the workers, then once they get educated and trained, they can easily find the job, so unemployment may reduce. Similarly, capital expenditure of the government on long-term projects like construction of roads, bridges, airports, seaports, schools, colleges, universities will create more job opportunities, so unemployment will reduce. But on the other hand, you will also say that supply side policy is not always effective to reduce unemployment, because if government is providing like education and training to the workers, and workers don't take care about it, and they are not basically careful, and they are careless about that, and they are reluctant to learn the new skills, so as a result they won't be able to find the jobs, and employment may not be created. Similarly, if government is providing subsidy to the private sector, then that subsidy may be used to purchase new machinery, technology and tools instead of like creating more jobs for the workers. So capital intensive techniques will be used more than employing the workers, so unemployment instead of decreasing will further rise. And capital expenditure on long-term projects are sometimes like useless, and they are for political gain and not for creating jobs, so again it will be like ineffective policy. Question number 11 says discuss whether or not a market economic system benefits an economy. Again, when examiner talks about economy, he means like consumers, producers, government, workers and community. So you will say that market economy, economic system, that is free market economic system that is run by the private individuals and companies can benefit the economy because of better quality goods and services will be produced, and there will be quick response of the producers to their customers, so customers' needs and wants are satisfied well and on time. Quality of goods will also be better in this type of economy. Private sector also creates more job opportunities to the individuals, and individuals get better chances to financially and occupationally grow. On the other hand, you will say that a market economic system may not benefit the economy because it may be involved in the production of greater quantity of demerit goods that are harmful to the society. So as a result, economy will suffer because of health issues such as cigarettes and alcohol. These are the products that harm the health of the consumers, as well overall society is also disturbed from that. And in market economic system, prices are generally charged high to earn high profits, and capital intensive techniques are also used where more machinery, technology and tools are used instead of workers, so unemployment of workers may also increase. And the next question is discuss whether or not inflation will harm the producers, right? So you will say on one hand inflation will harm the producers, and on other hand you will say that inflation may not harm the producers, right? Inflation is persistent rise in general prices over time. When price level is high, it will harm the producer because producer will not be able to purchase raw material, machinery, technology and tools and employ workers because of high prices of everything. So as a result, producers are harmed and they won't be able to produce greater quantity of goods and services. On the other hand, inflation will not harm the producers if inflation is kind of demand pull inflation, where the economic activity is high, aggregate demand is high, and producers are able to sell whatever they produce. So as a result, high prices will not harm them. And the next question is discuss whether or not the public sector should be responsible for the supply of all internet services. Public sector is basically the sector of economy run by the government. So you will talk about the advantages of public sector, that is planned economy or command economy, and then you have to talk against that as well. So you can say that public sector should be responsible for the supply of all internet facilities because public sector does not aim to earn high profit, rather it facilitates the society by providing greater services, greater volume of services at relatively low prices. So it should be responsible to provide internet services, and it has more financial resources as well to facilitate large number of people in the society. On the other hand, you will say that public sector should not be responsible for all that because public sector may have other aims to achieve, like it may need to focus more on the provision of defense services, educational services or medical facilities or building infrastructure instead of providing internet services. So it's not always better that public sector should be responsible for that because it increases workload of the government, and similarly public sector is generally slow in response. It does not respond to the customers very quickly. So if it provides internet facilities and services to the general public, then general public will further suffer because their response will be really slow. Like you can experience the services provided by PTCL in Pakistan and other private sector service providers. So you can like look into the difference easily. And question number 14 says discuss whether or not a very low birth rate would cause for concern for the government. Okay, so if birth rate is low, very low, it should be a source of concern for the government on one hand, and on the other hand it should not be a source of concern. Source of concern mean government should be tense about that, government should be concerned about that or not, right? तो government को फिक्र होनी चाहिए इस चीज़ की कि अगर birth rate low है तो. So on one hand you will say that government should be concerned, government को फिक्रमंद होना चाहिए if the rate of birth rate is very low, because in the future overall population of the country will decrease, labor force may decrease, and as a result government will have to rely more on imported labor force from other countries, and it may increase like crime rate in the country and pressure on its like facilities, infrastructure facilities, health facilities, and educational facilities and other facilities as well. And on the other hand, it should not be concerned about the very low birth rate if the population growth is already very high and the area of the country is already over occupied. So low birth rate will be blessing for such country, because overall burden on the infrastructure will reduce if birth rate further decreases. Like birth rate also low birth rate also requires less medical facilities, less educational facilities, etc. So it may benefit the country as well. And last but not the least question is discuss whether or not a firm will benefit from an increase in its output. When it says output, it means GDP of the country, right? So if there is increase in GDP of the country, will it benefit the firms or not, right? Discuss whether or not a firm will benefit from an increase in its output. Okay, so it's talking about the firm's output, not GDP overall. First of all, you will say that it will benefit the firm because it will be able to achieve economies of scale. When output increases, a firm can achieve internal economies of scale, and it will be able to get loans from the financial institutions at relatively low rate of interest. It will be able to afford better technology that can reduce cost and increase the speed of production, and it will be like able to achieve risk bearing economies, where it can diversify, produce variety of products, and can benefit from risk bearing economies as well. And on the other hand, you will say that firm will not benefit if it is facing diseconomies of scale, and it increase in output increases average cost of production for the firm. So its cost of production may rise, average cost of production may rise, and it may lead to fall in its profits, and it may be difficult for the business to further expand and earn profit and continue the economic activities. Sometimes would be like tough for it. So increase in output is beneficial on one hand, but on the other hand it might not always be beneficial to the firm. So these were the long questions, 8 mark questions, discuss question, where you have to talk against and in favor of the given statement. And this is it for O levels and IGCSE students. I believe you have learned something and you will be able to apply it in your exam tomorrow, and I wish all of you best of luck. And I'm also expecting that by tomorrow, you, after giving the exam, you are requested to send me the questions that you attempted, like statement of questions, and you can send them on WhatsApp number that was showing at the start of the video. And I'll also discuss those questions on this channel as well, so that you understand if you got them right or wrong, right? So again, best of luck. If you want me to go live for some time tonight, then to answer your questions, if you have any, then you may write in the comment in this video, and I'll manage to go live for 30 minutes, around 20-30 minutes, so that I can answer your questions. So see you soon inshallah with the next video. And definitely now you are done with your O-level exams and O-level classes, and now you're going to like enter A-levels. A-level is a little bit difficult, so I would suggest all of you to stay connected with me from the start of your session, and I'll be posting important things continuously on this channel for AS and A2 levels as well. So if you stay in touch with me, then definitely this channel is going to help you out for further 2 years as well. So see you with the next video, and keep me in your special prayers. See you inshallah. Allah Hafiz and best of luck.